Alright folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join us in the wild landscape of Scotland, and for this adventure we're heading around this old track here to document an ancient earth house. Check this out, what is going on below us? A raging torrent of water down there. Right now we're on a bridge. Look at this little lane that we're on. It's the old Teelan earth house, which is like an ancient settlement in Scotland where everybody's house was kind of under the ground, built with stone, just covered with like a thin layer. So it shows the ancient history and the thousands of years that's passed. Is this where it is? Through this little gate. Check it out folks. It's got the little sign there and then this little gate. It's cool to come to these places folks and document them because they're in the wild lands of Scotland, almost forgotten. This one is actually cared for and looked after though, which is quite interesting and quite cool. Check it out folks, we've come out onto this mad open piece of land here near the Teelan area. When we were at the old World War II RAF Teelan airfield, it's just over there, probably like 5 fields over. And then we've got this even more ancient history. That's the cool thing with Scotland, there's such a variation of interesting history from different times and periods. And look at the way it's constructed. You can imagine the folks sitting down under the ground in a place like this, and it's so cool we're able to come and visit it to this day and see what remains. And we'll have a look at this. Yeah, it's called the Teelan Souterrain. We were actually in the early Souterrain folks, and it's still fully covered over with the ancient stones, and I'll link that video at the end of this one. And it was really interesting to see, and this is cool to compare because look, they're both built like a curve. Yeah, this is super interesting folks. The Teelan Earth House. See, I didn't realise the Souterrain was a house. I thought it was more of a place that they would stay maybe 1 or 2 nights on a large, like a long journey up or down the country. See this folks, this is an Iron Age Souterrain, and it was actually ploughed up in 1871, and this is what they were kicking about like back at that time. The boy was ploughing here, this land, and he came across this, and you must imagine how incredible it must have been to find it. Back in the 1800s they were actually right into history, and that was at the period of time they started looking after history. You have to imagine here now, this would have been going down underneath the ground. I wonder if when he originally discovered it, I wonder if it was still covered with the large stones. Oh aye, sometimes there's ancient carvings here folks, look at that. The spiral depiction there on that stone. And we actually saw the snake on the early Souterrain. The early one's so cool because it's fully covered. Look, there's evidence of one of the potential big stones. Yeah, at one time, obviously, it was fully enclosed. But it's a large area. Yeah. Like, if you consider how long we've been walking around here from when we came down into the start of it, look at the size of the stones. We're talking Iron Age, like, crazy length of time has passed since a thing like this was built. And then look at these other massive stones within the structure here. It is crazy to see how they've built it. Think how long ago these stones were positioned in here. No, just hundreds of years folks, we're talking 1,000 years ago.
This is where the gates would be in the early one.
Yeah, the early one's got a gate because the structure's weakened, and this gives you an idea where it must be. But the last section kind of is right in near the start. It's weird how they built them like this. It's like a horseshoe shape, and I wonder for what reason. Aye, so the wind doesn't just come straight in, and maybe the air circulates better if it's a curved shape. Look at this, how this is built at a different time, a separate time. You can see the original wall coming in here, and then this section here is of completely different construction. And look, Ken, what? It's like it continues, because that's like the old roof slabs. So do you think it's actually deeper here? Look, see the shape of it?
I think it goes further there.
I think that it would probably go in further than what we're seeing. Because look, this is the roof stones here, some of them. That's what that is there as well. See that folks, often when you explore somewhere you start to see the history. I'm not saying all these are the roof stones, but some of them were probably most likely propped up because you can see the similarity with what is around here. Kind of stones of all different shapes and sizes. But look at this, would you know, say it looks interesting? For sure.
How much do you have to go up there?
Yeah, there's so much earth up there above the structure. Wow, what a spot. It is cool to have this variation on the channel of the newer history for like the 50s and the 60s, even the 90s with the Cold War stuff, and then this ancient history for times when the world was just so different. This may have even been within the edge of a forest or in the heart of a forest back then, because you just don't know, the land's changed so much since this ancient time.
All developed for farming these days.
Yeah, and there was a few of these over the land, but not a lot of them. Ken, there's only 2 that I know about, and this is one of them, and the other one we've documented. But I didn't realise that what they called the Earth House was actually a souterrain till I read that sign there. Ken, so it is cool to compare this one with the one we had seen already. Such an interesting bit of history. The stones at this side are almost bigger than the ones that we saw at the other side. But then again, that is a monstrous stone right there. Each one of these is like a standing stone, and it shows how deep into the ground they must be. And then you see the curve in the structure, which would have been where the edge kind of the roof was. The one we were in was curved like that as well, with the level flat stones nearer the top.
They've got quite dramatic curves on them, eh?
Yeah, it's totally interesting the way it did it, with only one entrance.
Yeah.
Again, they didn't have 2 entrances, folk, like you might suspect.
Well,
It's almost like...
they say that it could have been covered by a house. The entrance could have been covered by a house.
Oh, aye. On the sign, Channel DJ read the sign, and they were saying that there may have been a house or whatever on the entrance to this, and this may have been a storage area for the house. But that's just theorised history, folks, and it's not definite. Ken, the actual purpose of these is not fully known, and that's the other cool thing about these adventures. The history we explore is like so incredible, it's hardly even known, because it's from such a long time ago. People often study structures and theorise of their origin or their original purpose, but it could be from a different time or way of life that we'll never understand. The reason it's shaped like this, maybe even the wind and the air that flows over here is different now. Ken, maybe back then they had mental storms that were extreme. This might have sheltered them from the extreme winds. Or maybe they were growing something down here under the ground and they needed a certain flow of air or humidity. There's so many theories. Aye, this is interesting as well. That would have been the small opening.
Now, if you think back to the early one, Ken,
Yeah.
it's to a little hole in the ground.
Yeah, the early one's just a gradual hole,
Yeah.
whereas this one's more of like an opening. But then, has this been changed and developed, Ken, to make it more of what we're seeing? Like that bit's been rebuilt at the far end. So like this could be the original entrance, but see with this here, Ken, that could have been, so imagine that hole. This is similar, if you just imagine the ground over the top, you would come in to that kind of shape, and then it does get wider once you go in a bit. But Ken, the interesting thing, it curves exactly the same way, which is an interesting thing, folks. Both the souterrains we've been in are constructed exactly the same. They both curve down into the left, and it's just interesting. Look at the way the stone's shaped it. It's almost like you can see where they've been chiseling it out with the little dips and the little shapes.
Like, they were obviously people early obviously spoke.
Yeah, but it could have been the same people using the early souterrain on their pilgrimages. They may have had an area of refuge, because you have to imagine back then there was often wolves and stuff on the land, and say if they were maybe droving sheep over the land or animals, they would bring all that in there at night to protect it from the attack of the wolves or other crazy animals out in the land. Whereas you didn't really see people speaking about that side of things. There's enough room in there where the person could probably sleep with a good small herd of sheep kicking about. Which is just another theory, folks, but it's cool to analyse all the theories and just imagine it. And look at the sunset we're getting. I don't know if you tuned into the last adventure, but we're up at an ROC bunker near here at Powery Bray. And literally that's just over there pretty much. Probably like a couple of mile. And it was the same sunset. This is just a little bit later on the same day. And we've brought you another incredible bit of history. But this adventure's not over yet, because there's actually an old Doocot up at the car park's edge that we're going to document in this video as well. So let's crack on with this adventure. So check this out, folks. This little bit of landscape's amazing. It's a paradise scene out here in Scotland. And it looks like this has been freshly cut, which gives us a wee path to walk around the edge. Check this out, folks. This is the next piece of history on this channel here. The Doocot was built in 1595. It bears on the gable stone the arms and initials of Sir David Maxwell of Teeling, and on the door lintel his monogram, with that of Helen, his wife. And that must be what this is here. Oh look, it's got like a snake or something on it. Just think, 1595. This is a fine example of the many large Doocots which still survive in Scotland. In the Middle Ages, the building of Doocots was encouraged by the Act of Parliament, but by the 17th century, pigeons had become so numerous and destructive that they had to be restricted. And that is the interesting thing. I'm sure the Parliament used to want them to do it. We've discussed this before. It was for the making in the ancient times of the gunpowder for the British Navy. So the people supplied them with the bird faeces and they got an ingredient from that. And look, I can see the other inscription up there. See it? On the end of that stone. Look at the erosion here on the stones as well. It shows how many years. 1595. See, that shows the castle I was at a few videos ago was knocked down in 1593, and that was when Scotland was pillaged and like taken over, and then things like this were built like a couple of years later, brand new buildings and ancient historical wonders. Is that open?
Yeah.
Is it still original, and can we see? Oh, it's an eerie door, folks. The torch is in the car. Wait, hang on, I've got a phone torch here. Check it out. Wow. This is one of these ones which is like the stone little segments for the birds. Check it out, folks. What do we have here? Wow, the old stone roof tiles and stuff. Just think, 1500s this was built. And here we are in the middle of it. And look at the stone floor. Wow, folks, this is super cool to see. Channel DJ's got this light, which is actually pretty good for seeing the details. Look at the chisel marks. Let's get the light over here, folks. Wow. Insane to see the way that each of those was built and constructed. And most of the ones we go to, the roof and stuff's right off them. Wow, and every wall you can see is like that. Where's the bit for the birds to go out and in? Up at the ends, look, see them? There's actually big openings there in line with the beam. So that's an interesting fact. And there's just pigeon nests like all around. This is so interesting, folks. Look at this door. I'll get the shadow off the door, folks, so we can actually see it. Look at the detail. Wow. The history on this channel is incredible.
Not a nail used there. Look at the join.
Yeah, the way that all that dovetails in and stuff like that. So impressive. So interesting. Look at the old lime wash paint that's on there. The old whitewash. Craziest I've seen, folks. And then look at studs on the door, like a lot of the old castles and big buildings of the era.
Some door just for a look at it, yeah.
It's incredible. Once again, the realist of history. Look at this, the way that's all carved. It's mad how this little stone here is eroded so much compared to the rest of these stones. Hey, did you take a walk around the structure to have a look?
No, really, no.
Oh look, there's the bit where the birds flew out and in. This is the outside
This is
Yeah,
right
and look, see the lead platform? We've seen these, but the lead's always off them. And that's a detail I didn't know they had. Again, they would have had lead around there to stop the building getting damaged. The stone here is so eroded. It's been quite soft sandstone, I would say, because you see other sandstone buildings from this era that's not so eroded. Yeah, look at that, the whole way around. It's got that historical detail. And I love the way the moss and stuff takes over. That old stone slab roof, that's what houses and all buildings had back at that time. Yeah, the little square opening up at the top. And then it's got the wee bit for them to perch on before they go through the hole. And it's just a time in history that's forgotten, almost gone. Back at that time, they obviously ate the pigeons as well, and maybe even the eggs, as well as needing them for their other uses. And the way the stones are, that was maybe for them to sit on as well. It gives them more perching areas. And a place like this would have probably been like a thriving... you can just imagine them all, the noise, probably the dirt that was coming through them all around. And one of the jobs back at that time must have been a pigeon keeper, or a Doocot keeper. Anyway folks, oh wait, there's old history here, wait, it's not over, it's not over yet. What even is this here? It's a stone with a circle in it. Oh, it's a bit of the building, I'm sure. But look at this here folks, it's an old farm rake. Oh look, Lister Blackstone. That's so cool to see, a bit of farming history. And I'm sure it's a rake that you would have pulled even behind like a horse or whatever, especially like a vintage tractor. You kept going forward and those tines would pick up the grass. And then when you were ready, you wanted to make like a pile of grass, you just pulled the lever. And I'm sure the tines lifted up. So interesting to see. Look at the old wheels. Wow. Real history here folks. Not only the farming or the ancient Souterrain or even the Doocot. It's just a madness and a crazy mixture, and the adventure along the way to see it, it's incredible. But I'm going to end this one here anyway. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back soon with the next scene, wherever we end up going. Goodbye for me, goodbye for the channel DJ, and we'll see you soon folks.